Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Mignell, CEO of the Cultural Communications Agency, The Flash. Each episode, I bring on a different business leader who's doing some game-changing work. And this episode, of course, is no different. I'm so excited to have Steven Seghers, who's the president and CEO of the Hooray Agency. And we're going to find out how he got to be where he is today, his awesome career journey. It's going to be a great conversation. Take a listen. Hey, Steven.
Hi, Laura. Wonderful to be on with you, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Uh, it's always fun talking to great business leaders who have companies with great sounding names. So we'll get to that in a bit. But the podcast always starts off with the exact same question. So, Steven, what was your first job?
Well, but before I dive into that, let me start out by saying Happy Chinese New Year. I am the father of two half Chinese little girls, so this is a big deal. This week's a big deal. We have red envelopes flying and gifts and food galore. So I just want to express to you and your audience a very happy New Year, part two. And yes, so I started my career when I was 5 years old. I always start out by saying that because I remember sitting in the boardroom with my father essentially since I could walk.
Oh, wow.
And my father was a traditional businessman, although he started out as an educator. He was very much a disciplinarian, but very business focused, very traditional in terms of his structure, and certainly his outlook on business was of a traditional mindset from a scholarship perspective. And he was a managing director with New York Life. So he was his office was obviously here in Southern California, but New York Life obviously is from New York and one of the oldest insurance companies in the world. And so I started my career as basically an intern at New York Life when I was in high school. And then I also, during that time, transitioned into audiovisual work. So in high school, I worked for an audiovisual company and moonlighted as an AV guy, while at the same time I was doing insurance support work for my dad's agency, which was a field office in Los Angeles. So I guess you could say that was where the bridge between my business acumen coming from my father and where my creative expertise sort of was spurred through the visual arts and managing audio and lighting and all that fun stuff. So I was that's where it all started.
Well, you kind of got the entrepreneurial bug, and then you also kind of learned what it actually meant to run a real business because you watched it from your dad, which is rare to see, where you're like, all right, I can get this from high school and take it with me wherever I go. That's awesome. So what's the story from, okay, working for your dad as an intern till now? What's that career journey been like?
Well, it's a short story because I've been at Hooray Agency for 27 years, and I started when I was 19. So
Wow.
So you have to butt up the story of what I just relayed as how I started my career and how I jumped into Hooray are almost one and the same, right? So the transition between me being a high schooler to starting off in college and then transitioning into what has essentially been my career path for almost 30 years is pretpretty unusual, and certainly not
what made you stay? What made you stay the whole time? Because that's especially in our industry, folks are like, I'll be here and I'll bounce, I'll come back.
Yeah, I mean, it helps when the guy who started the agency is my stepfather. So I jumped from father to father. Yeah, so I, what's interesting is, my father is a traditional businessman, and my stepfather is a dreamer entrepreneur. So I got the best of both worlds, honestly, and I've got to give a lot of credit to both parents for providing me with foundation in completely different ways. But Nick Singer started the agency in the early 90s, and I basically dropped out of college and joined the agency, and been with the agency ever since. And I took the mantle of CEO about 10 years ago. But I've been with the agency for since I had a full set of hair, and now I've retained my youthful exuberance for this space while having absolutely no hair, being a bald guy now. But yeah, this has been my path.
And what is it that you learned along the way that you were like, you know what, there's something really unique about this space, and that's why I want to keep it going?
Yeah, I mean, look, you don't get into the agency world without without a clear understanding that if you are not grounded in understanding what your clear purpose is, you're going to be in trouble. And I think what was interesting for me is that we needed to find purpose. And for me as a business leader, but also for me in terms of driving the agency and being a leader, it was important for us to sort of to create an identity. And of course we can talk about the name Hooray and the genesis of that. But ultimately, I think it was important for us to establish a clear purpose in the market. And so for us, it was all about how do we apply equal weight between the left and the right brain. And I think that's, ultimately when you look at the agency space, I think it's pretty clear that most agencies sort of fall in a bucket, right? They're either they're focused on strategy, they're focused on brand, they're focused on digital, they're focused on content. And I think for us, it was important that we understood our purpose early on. And so I think it takes time to do that, right? That doesn't happen overnight. And so, when we started as an agency early on, we were heavily focused on content, and we were heavily focused on digital, which at the time, we're talking the early 90s, that was pretty revolutionary. I mean, early 90s, we're talking this is pre-Google, right? This is pre-Facebook. So we were starting in a space that was completely immature. And so I think it was important for us to really determine where are we going to fit in. And so very quickly, I think we recognized that in order for us to find relevancy, in order for us to find strength, we needed to have some expertise. And so I really focused the agency's efforts on lifestyle and hospitality. And that's where I think we really got to see significant vertical growth. And it's interesting because, we started off heavily focused on healthcare. So we were doing a lot of work with Allergan, with Johnson & Johnson, with Pfizer, with Beckman Instruments. So that was our early foundation as a company. And that made sense for us because we were doing a lot of production work, right? That was very heavy digital, heavy animation, heavy content. But as we began to mature, we recognized, look, if we're going to provide a truly, I hate to use this overused word of holistic, but if we really are going to provide a well-rounded approach, we needed to be immersed end to end, from the experiential side to the content side to the digital, and we wanted to wrap that. And we felt that the hospitality industry, which is a sector that our agency has really focused on almost exclusively, but we're branching beyond that. I think for us, it was very important that we developed services and solutions that really grounded that industry. And so, that allowed us to be successful and allowed us to really drive a lot of creativity.
Awesome. But also it's fascinating because, yeah, you were in business pre-Google, and now we're in the world of TikTok. And so you've gotten a front seat working with brands as we've ridden this digital revolution in many ways. What's one thing you think, now that you've kind of been through it, you wish you knew then that you know now?
Uh, I think you have to ask a lot of questions. So if I look at myself, if I go back 25 years, I think, if I mentor any young person, I say, you have to be inquisitive. Ask a lot of questions. Be collaborative. Surround yourself with the best. Don't be afraid. Learn to dominate a sector. Um, Being a generalist won't get you anywhere. Anyone that says I'm great at everything is a liar. They're not. So it's important. I think, look, everyone, people want to work with smart people, but smart people know what they're good at. And at the end of the day, if I were to go back and do it all over again, I would say, I shouldn't be afraid to ask questions. I think smart people ask a lot of great questions. That's what ultimately uncovers potential solutions. That's what uncovers truth. That's what uncovers opportunity. So that would be my advice.
Awesome. And so, I have to ask, how do we get to the name Hooray as an agency?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, as I mentioned, when we started in the 90s, that we were not Hooray. We were a different name. I'll leave the name unsaid. We rebranded to Hooray for a few reasons. But I'll get to the core of it, which is, I think when you say Hooray, you smile, right? I think,
yeah.
Right. So, look, we're a creative agency. We're an agency that serves clients globally. We're full service. We do a lot of, obviously we're creative, but I think we wanted a name that made you smile, and that hopefully made you think about a moment that you said hooray, right? In your career, or in terms of life moments. But the challenge with a name like Hooray is instinctively clients want to, it's sort of like it all boils down to this idea that it's a moment, right? Because when you say hooray, it's like a moment. And we don't want hooray to be a moment, right? So on one hand, it should make you smile. So we came up with a name because we liked it. We thought that it looks good on paper. It feels good. It's a great adjective. It's a rallying cry. But we also recognize that it can be used as a weapon, right? And it could be also very limiting, because if all you expect is to hire a great agency, and you feel like you're going to wake up every day and have a hooray moment, that isn't the expectation that we want to leave, right? Because then it begins to lose impact, right? If every day you're hooray, it loses something, right? No one lives their life in a hooray moment. So really, it's really about a long-term philosophy of winning, right? It's about creating hooray moments that are sustainable, and it's also about a way of thinking, right? As I mentioned, the agency world is filled with a lot of bloat and a lot of BS, and so our idea around Hooray is, how can we get beyond that? How can we create a this opportunity where someone that's worked either with small shops or big shops, they all have these things where they say, I wish if only they could do this. Great creative agency, but they don't do this. Or great agency, but they are missing this side of the business, or they don't look at things from a 360-degree perspective. And so we wanted it to be like, no, what Hooray brings is that not just the hooray moment or that point in time, but again, it's a philosophy of providing a total solution, right? And so that was the outcropping of Hooray. But look, the challenge with Hooray is, right, everyone wants a hooray. And the idea that we wanted to create is to say, look, you will have a hooray moment. That's a given. But without the sustainability attached, then it won't be, it'll only be hooray for that point in time. It won't be hooray tomorrow. And so we wanted to make sure that we could extend that and create that extendability. But that's the genesis that's the long-winded answer to the genesis of Hooray.
Awesome. And so, it's interesting, and it's such a really great ethos, because, in our agency, our tagline is welcome home. And same kind of premise, like you're not always going to be smiling about walking, being happy and healthy as you get welcome into whatever home we're building for you. But that kind of core ethos is so key to everything that we do, that we're going to keep it going no matter what. Similarly aligns with what you guys are doing over at Hooray. So it's always great to see the alignment in terms of the purpose and what the agency's conveying. So that's pretty darn cool.
Well, one of the things that we focus on, I mean, for us, it's not it's more of an internal, positioning is what we call being impossible to ignore, right? So the idea for us as a rallying cry is not hooray, but how can we be impossible to ignore? And it's not just about creative, right? Because to a certain extent, you think that's about creative, creating something that's impossible to ignore, right? But it's more than that. It's about the approach. It's about communications. It's about insights. It's about analytics. It's about creating things that aren't just disruptive, but that can be life-changing. So yeah, that's all. Totally agree with you. That's all part of that soup that I think is a powerful differentiator for us.
Awesome, and so extremely true, especially now. Speaking of which, so we've all just gone through the toughest year ever for the advertising and marketing industries and brands. How did you all figure it out and find your way through?
Yeah, great question, Laura. I mean, look, 2020 was a very challenging year. We had to lay off, 20% of our team, unfortunately, and it was brutal. We had furloughs, and we had obviously a start and stop, and we had 80% budget declines in this, first and second quarter. So the mere fact that I'm able to talk to you today is a testament to the health of our agency and our ability to be nimble. But I'm also reminded of the fact that past generations had it much, much worse. I mean, we need to keep things into perspective. We were due for a correction. I'm a very positive person. At the end of the day, it was a tough year. We went through a tough year. This year, we no doubt that we have a fresh beginning, a great foundation for success in 2021 and 2022, as you and I talked about earlier. But ultimately, it was brutal, no doubt, from a business perspective. But I think strong companies remain strong. Weak companies failed because they weren't adaptable and they weren't prepared for the inevitability of business declines. I mean, that's inevitable. Business declines are inevitable. So if you're not prepared for it, then shame on you as a leader. But I think that what I'm telling all of my clients, same thing that I tell myself, is that you have to budget for the unpredictable. And at the end of the day, you have to pre-plan for contingency while not having your head in the sand. And what I mean by that is maintain an aggressive posture. And so what we've recommended to our clients is now is not the time to cower. And this is what we said last year. Now is not the time to shut down. Even if you're a hotel, which many of our clients are in the hotel sector, where they were forced to shut down, we saw that as an opportunity, right? This is an opportunity to engage with your clients in a meaningful way. It's an opportunity to assert new positioning. It's a new opportunity to be courageous and optimistic and to find inspiration. That's what people want. It's a great opportunity to engage with your customer at an emotional level so that when you are back, you're top of mind. So those are the things that we worked really hard on last year, and the fruits of that for those clients that remained engaged by far have been the most successful in restarting their business, have been the most successful in maintaining rate integrity and revenue, have been the most successful in growing their brand equity despite the downturn. And so all of those same strategies are the same strategies that Hooray leveraged to maintain both a positive trajectory, but also to ensure that we were able to to stay afloat and to be sustainable and relevant. and that was, that was really important for us.
Awesome. And it's a testament to the resiliency of have a plan for everything, because you never know what's going to go down, especially at this particular moment where we're all kind of like, all right, let's just go for it. We don't have a choice. But it's cool. It's really cool to see that you guys were able to adapt and even grow. So now that we've made it through 2020 and it's now into 2021, where do you guys see what's on the horizon for Hooray?
Well, our big launch this year is for a new brand that's actually opening in Las Vegas, which, as you can imagine, it's hard enough entering into one of the most competitive hospitality and entertainment markets in the globe during a great year, let alone opening a new brand in a competitive market during a pandemic, which is precisely what Resorts World is doing this year. They're a new brand in the United States. They've been around globally for over 50 years. They're one of the largest hospitality brands in the globe, predominantly on the gaming and entertainment side. So here we are in 2021, launching a $4.5 billion integrated resort, which is the largest integrated resort to land on the Strip in over a decade. So to say that we have our hands full is an understatement. So
tiny bit.
Yeah, our agencies, we're swimming in this, and in a great way. And look, we have no illusions to the fact that it's going to be very challenging to time the opening, which is slated for the summer of 2021 this year. But we believe that Resorts World has the potential to be the vanguard of new growth in Vegas. I mean, we believe that they have the potential to restart the hospitality rebound, not just in Vegas, but to restart the rebound for all hospitality in the United States. So it's a tremendous opportunity for the agency. Unfortunately, I can't reveal all the things that we have prepared, but we have a major national media campaign that will be launching to coincide with the launch. All of the brand efforts and integrated marketing and advertising efforts will be launched in full coming this spring, and it will be groundbreaking work. So we're thrilled about it, and I think we're optimistic that again the timing of the launch will coincide with vaccinations, will coincide with all of this pent up demand. Whether you want to call it the emergence of the revenge spending, which everyone's talking about, or venture spending, or whatever you want to call it. But look, the market is yearning to get back to get back to the time where we could have joy, find joy, where we could find emotional stimulation with our friends and family. And Vegas has always been that place. So we think that we have the opportunity to really flip the switch at a perfect time. And so hopefully, if all the things continue to move in the direction they're moving, we'll be in a position to launch again the largest hotel project in the globe, to restart the Vegas market, and to hopefully be at the forefront of kickstarting what will be a great year for the hotel industry. I think we're really optimistic that it can happen.
Awesome. Yeah, listen, I am optimistic for us turning on the lights again. And there's going to, as everyone says, the last plague was in 1918. And then there was the Roaring '20s immediately after that. And I think, we're going to have something not akin to the Roaring '20s, because then it ended with the Great Crash in 1929. But I do think that there is this sort of pent up fervor to get back outside and to travel and to just be and have a good time again and just a party. And when I think of some of my favorite memories, obviously Vegas is included, that, folks are we want to be out, but also people who can't afford to are going to have a lot more disposable income because no one went on vacation for like a year and a half. So the ability to travel and do new things and be the first at new places that open, and making those sorts of investments in your own pleasure, because after being stuck inside for a year, are going to hopefully yield a huge spike. And so the companies that come out first with something new and cool and awesome are going to be the ones that win that day.
I agree. I mean, look at LV's earnings during the pandemic. With the exception of their champagne division, which collapsed because no one was having big parties. I mean, LV, Dior, and Hennessy did really well. There are, the bottom line is there's no such thing as recession-proof industries, but there are recession-proof brands. And I think that if you do your work on the brand side, you can create a moat of protection for these downtimes. And great brands that have successfully navigated this storm are the ones that connected with their customers well before the pandemic, maintained that connection with their customers during the pandemic, and aggressively pursued very strong communication strategies throughout, and focus on the emotional connectivity that their brand needs to have with their customer. And that's precisely what we do with our hospitality accounts and our lifestyle accounts, what we certainly did on the healthcare side when we were doing it. But that's going to be a cornerstone of success for Resorts World, obviously, is new brand has no emotional connectivity, right? So unlike a legacy brand, they've got to create that legacy. But it will be, the good news is they have a great foundation, and they have a legacy built on a true international pedigree. So it's going to be exciting, and certainly it'll be exciting to get people back to travel, which is, I think when you look at the latest stats that I've seen, that's like the number one on the list, right? On the again, I won't call it revenge spending, I'll call it revenge adventure. I think that's where everyone wants to get back to adventuring, and whether that's travel or whether that's spending on luxury goods, or whether that's just getting on the move and having that, having that drive market engagement. It's going to be significant. So it'll be exciting for sure.
So, okay, gotta ask, where do you want to go once it's safe to travel?
For me, that's easy. So I have, as I mentioned, starting out, my wife's from Taiwan, and my mother's Dutch. So I divide my time between my eastern side of the family and my western side of the family. So I would probably defer to my wife and say we have family to visit in Taiwan. But if my heart obviously would say I need to visit family in Holland, so that would be my first choice.
Oh, awesome.
So, and if you haven't looked at pictures of Amsterdam lately, they're filled with snow. They're ice skating in the canals. That's where I want to be.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Yeah, I've never been to Amsterdam, but I have a client project in Amsterdam we're doing virtually. And I'm like, couldn't I just kind of go? Because it looks awesome.
You would love it. You would love it.
It just looks so beautiful and so amazing. But yeah, I have a huge long list of places I want to go to. I turned 40 last February, and so I had this whole trip that I was supposed to go on in August to Bali for a month, and it went up in flames with everybody else's vacation plans. So like that's the first place on my list. The minute it's fully safe to get on planes and actually enjoy the experience with them. So yeah, we all have our adventures that we've got to go on the minute it's safe. But no, it's interesting, navigating all of this, being a leader, being a dad and a husband, what do you do for your self-care?
For self-care?
Yeah. For you. You're like,
you know what? So I love to mountain bike. So that's my passion. So I do a lot of mountain biking here in Southern California. I love being a father, honestly. So as much time as I can spend being a dad is where I want to be. Obviously, I work long hours, and unfortunately still do travel. I'm actually flying to Vegas later this afternoon. But reading, being outdoors, mountain biking, that's what keeps me sane. I love anything to do with the outdoors. Uh, love sports. So I used to be heavily involved in league play basketball, which unfortunately with the pandemic that went by the wayside. So I've got to do my solo mountain biking now, but no, that's where I find my peace for sure.
Okay, so two questions on this one. What position did you play with basketball league, and what kind of bike do you have for your mountain bike?
Yeah, so I was a shooting guard, and did that for 10 years, and then from a mountain bike, I have a Yeti SB 130, so that's my pride and joy.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I was power forward, but I haven't played in like years. And I recently took up biking as part of my pandemic like thing to keep me sane. And so I got a Cannondale Treadwell, and so it's a
Great
hybrid
brand.
bike.
Great brand.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's like part mountain bike, part city bike. So it's a hybrid. And so I've taken it everywhere. I rode up in the Berkshires, and then in Manhattan, and you're right. It is sort of definitely gives me my peace when I like get on that bike and like, oh, now it's cold and snowing here in New York. On the summertime, it's beautiful. It is that sort of great moment of peace to sort of like just like breathe in the fresh air and be one with the bike, as they would say.
Absolutely. Well, look, and that's one of the industries that did so well last year. I mean, I don't know, I'm not sure what it's like in your area, but you couldn't get a bike.
Oh, no.
In California. Even just to get minor tune-ups would take weeks. Bike orders took 6 to 8 months or more. But that's it's one of those industries that did phenomenally well. Aftermarket outdoor industries did obviously really well. But yeah, I mean, it's I think when you look at where the potential is, when you sort of look at how you can project out, I think that those industries that take advantage of this idea that the customer, this whole revival, this renaissance of local lifestyle, outdoors, multi-use, it's a great segment that again, I think has so much potential growth. And the hybrid bike model has obviously been phenomenal. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's been fascinating. I mean, yeah, here in New York, it was a nightmare. I mean, I bought 2 different bikes that never arrived. And so I finally had to give in and go into the bike stores. And so I just got like in my head one Saturday morning, like I am buying a bike. And so I literally found that there were only 6 bikes left in New York City under $1,000, and I bought one of them. So there were 5 after that Saturday. But I think that you're right about it, because I also see that this isn't going away for a couple of reasons. One, it was not a cheap bike. So the idea that I'm going to put this away and never use it again, not happening. But 2, it also gave me something new to do and a whole other crew. I joined the bike group. I made a bunch of new friends, even though we're all mass. I got to see parts of New York I hadn't seen before, and other kind of rural places, which I would never have normally done. And I think, for a lot of people, it's opened up your eyes to like these other outdoor sports that you might have thought were not really accessible because you live in big cities, or you think it's cost prohibitive because everything is so expensive. But I think with the advent of like, you had to go outside and find your own way to do something during this crazy pandemic, there's a whole new vertical of fitness that comes out with this, and this kind of getting back in touch with nature, which, especially when you're a big city, you can't really do, but you find a way. So I'm excited for what this kind of holds in terms of how this will uh, change markets and behavior.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's one of the, it's one of the great, I think one of the great, if you want to say the silver lining was, for people getting out and sort of refocusing themselves on on what's important, right? And your health, the simple things of life, right? Which is, your mobility and health and this idea of, of of connectivity, right? But not going back to the analog, right? I think has been helpful, right? We're also cooped up now on Zoom calls and looking at screens all day long, and this idea that no, like that bike technology has evolved, but at the end of the day, this idea that no, you can actually get on a bike and you can actually go out and experience life and from a completely different perspective and do something healthy and be safe. I couldn't agree more. It's why I'm so passionate about it. So
It's gonna be fun to see how it all kind of shakes out, and that's why it's fun to be in our industry, because there's so many new twists and turns that we're all gonna cover in the next year. And Steven, it's been great chatting with you. And I have one last question: do you have a give and or ask of the audience?
I'm not sure what the ask would be.
So the examples are a give could be like, hey, here's your really great book that I read that could be awesome. And ask would be like, be sure to listen to folks when they're talking to you, or take time for yourself. It can be anything you want.
Yeah. So my give would be, in this age of over information, it's good to be informed, but don't be safe. And I think that's when you look at what it means to be, for those that are good versus great, the people that are good are well informed and they're safe. Those that are great are informed, but they can look beyond that information and see new opportunity and new vision. So I think to the ask for the audience would be quite simply the way we ended this, which is get outdoors, get a bike. That's my sage advice.
No, you're right. But it's so true on both sides of the house. It's like, listen, you've got to take things one step, like be bold and taking those next steps forward, and not, no more playing small ball. If the one thing this past year has taught us all is like, small ball is for suckers. If you want to go for this, you've got to really go for it. And the same token, get the heck outside. My God, yes, because you've been trapped indoors. Like,
absolutely. So, if you want to win, look, you are a power forward. So if you want to win, your shot's going to be easier when you make contact, right? At the end of the day, you've got to bump your competition and bump them hard, and that'll create the space for you to make the shot. And that's what everyone needs to do if you want to be successful, particularly in a pandemic. You got to make contact, and so absolutely.
I love that one. And great on the fly basketball analogy, Steven. Nice one. Awesome. Well, Steven, it's been such a great time chatting with you. We'll throw your details in the show notes so folks can check out you and Hooray, and some of the awesome work that you all have been doing. And it's been a great time chatting with you. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks, Laura. And next time we'll do this in person.
Absolutely. All right. Awesome. And that is our show.